Welcome to People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people, you have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.
A very warm welcome to everyone. We are joined by a very special guest, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who represents District 9 in New York. Welcome. So good to have you.
Great to be back with you once again, Pearl.
Always a pleasure. So you have been stepping out in the forefront addressing various issues, and one of those issues is immigration, which is the focus of our conversation. Recently, you led a contingent of New York leaders and spoke about immigration and how America is a nation of immigrants founded by immigrants. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely, Pearl. Well, let me say that it was a joint press conference with public advocate Jumaane Williams, who had reached out to our office out of a real concern about what we have noticed with respect to the number of immigrants that were being bused to New York City from the southern border by the Texas governor, Governor Abbott, as well as flown across the country by Governor DeSantis of Florida. And the need for us to really address the root issues around why people are immigrating to the United States, what kind of resource is required to address the influx of immigrants that have come to New York City, and call for comprehensive immigration reform. Your audience and you will know that this has been an issue that has been near and dear to me since I entered the United States Congress. And it's been over 30 years since we've had an overhaul of our immigration laws in the United States. And as the daughter of Jamaican immigrants and the representative for such a very large immigrant population, I feel wedded to getting us to a point where we have a 21st century immigration policy that is fair and just to those who are seeking the American dream.
And thank you for that. So you mentioned that Governor Abbott has been busing immigrants and Governor DeSantis. And Abbott has announced that he will restart busing immigrants to New York. Just to give your thoughts on the situation, and is your office providing any assistance? And I also want to talk about our Haitian brothers and sisters, because they have been facing hardship. You know, they've been dying in boats, corralled by agents on horses on whips, and flown back to Haiti on planes.
Absolutely. You know, and that's been a travesty. I've had multiple conversations with the Biden administration and Secretary Mayorkas. They recognize the crisis that is taking place and unfolding each and every day in Haiti. Right now, without having a governance structure in place, with the sort of gangs that are roving the nation, extorting Haitians and Haitian Americans, and just making life unlivable for many Haitians. That is a pressure that is forcing many Haitians to take a very treacherous trek across the seas and across Central and South America to make their way to the United States, where they can be united with family members here. Having said that, the Biden administration has put a program into place called CBP-1, and it's a mobile process by which people can seek asylum and set up an opportunity to be interviewed for their asylum. That is not going to stop, given the pressure that people feel to leave Haiti. That's not going to stop individuals from, I believe, coming to the United States, but it is a pathway for those who can have access to the mobile app to make their way to the United States. And with regards to what Governor Abbott is doing and busing immigrants to to New York City, the New York congressional delegation has really appealed to the Biden administration to use its discretion to send resources to our city. Now, they understand the imperative, and it's only going to become even more of a critical need because more and more immigrants are arriving in New York. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding that a bus came in yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a challenge for our mayor, for our city, to be able to settle these individuals into our city and provide them with sort of the basic needs to be able to live a dignified existence here while their cases are being adjudicated. One of the things that I have requested and others of my colleagues is to provide an expedited process by which these immigrants can be authorized to work in the United States, a work authorization, if you will, as we understand that there's a financial burden. And all of these immigrants want to be able to do is to provide for themselves and their families. So these are two requests that have gone to the Biden administration. Our office, is working with anyone who comes in our doors seeking support, seeking assistance with their immigration cases. We have not received a lot of individuals who are coming across the border and residing within the 9th District. But anyone who resides within the 9th District knows that our office is there to be of assistance.
That was going to be my next question, because Mayor Eric Adams has urged the Biden administration to provide expedited emergency paths to work authorization for those asylum seekers ahead of Title 42 lifting. So I see that your office have already made steps in that regard as well. So
absolutely, there's no doubt that there is work to be done in our city. There's still signs on small businesses seeking help, and these are individuals who can do this work if we facilitate it. And so that's part of our request to the Biden administration, to Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, to make provision for these individuals to receive work authorization.
So we know that on May 11th, Title 42 will be uplifted and there's going to be a transition to Title 8. What are your thoughts, concerns about Title 8?
Well, Title 8 has always been in effect. It's been our immigration law since the 1940s. The issue for me is that those laws are dated. We need a 21st century immigration policy in the United States, given that conditions, around the world have changed significantly since those laws were passed. We need to make sure that we stand up a more robust asylum program for those who are in harm's way and are seeking a better life here in the United States. We need to make sure that those who are here and in between status, that they are on a pathway to receiving green cards and to citizenship. We need to make sure that DACA recipients are normalized so that they're not in a constant state of anxiety over whether their status will be adjusted or they'll be deported. And so Title 8 is outdated, needs to be modernized. However, that is the law that's currently in place. And that is the law that will basically go into effect once Title 42 is lifted. And understand that Title 42 was an emergency provision that expedites the removal of individuals from the United States under, our public health laws. The pandemic emergency has been lifted. Therefore, Title 42 is no longer applicable. And so Title 8, which also has removal provisions, will then come into play. And I just want to be sure that as the Customs and Border Patrol and all the other entities that are working at the border, are utilizing the provisions of this law, that people are given due process, and that we are acknowledging those who are seeking asylum in the way that it's intended.
Okay, so looking at the immigrants who have been here, we know that immigrants have been the backbone of our labor force for centuries, from farm workers to street vendors, nannies, delivery workers, professionals, elected officials to small business owners. Recently, we celebrated May Day. Being a daughter of immigrants, what is your message to all immigrants?
Well, from the city council to Congress to the Biden-Harris administration, we celebrate the impact that immigrant communities have had on our labor force. And I'll continue to fight for the immigrant population of our city, and for the United States to remain a beacon of hope to immigrants from around the world. I believe they're worth fighting for. I know that is what renews our nation. That is what ultimately is an integral part of sort of the compact we have with all Americans. As more immigrants arrive in our shores, are integrated into our society, we see innovation continue to flourish. We are able to undergird our tax base because they become robust taxpayers, which is what runs, our nation's government. We see our private sector being renewed because they're young people with the talent, the skill, and the expertise to make sure that, our companies are the number one in the world. And so it's critical for me to stay in the fight for comprehensive immigration reform, recognizing the multiple contributions that immigrants make to our economy and to our civil society.
And speaking about the fight, Congresswoman Clarke, do you have any special programs, any bills in place that you can share with us?
Yeah, there have been a number of initiatives that I've introduced in terms of legislation. Most recently, I've introduced the Climate Change Research Act, which requires the Department of Homeland Security to assess the current federal research regarding any potential or identified effects of climate change on Homeland Security, and it authorizes the Science and Technology Directorate to research and develop approaches that will have effects on our Homeland Security, particularly for disadvantaged migrant communities that are often hardest hit by climate change, and we can't ignore them. We have to recognize that with climate change becoming, a more frequent phenomenon globally, we're going to see a lot of human movement as people encounter famine, as they encounter natural disasters, flooding, things that, maybe decades ago were not a factor in sort of human existence. And so it's critical that we are forward-leaning and that we prepare for what ultimately is going to be a growing phenomena, and that's the movement of people around the globe to areas of the world that are not as impacted by climate change. In addition to that, I've signed on to a number of letters. One is I spoke about the CBP One app, which I believe has some flaws and is unreliable. And when people are in really dangerous situations, they have to have a method of connecting with the United States and our sort of immigration process that they can rely on. The CBP One app has to be upgraded and has to be accurate, so that these individuals, who are many of whom are currently in holding facilities in Mexico, can get their due process and access to the process of seeking asylum. And then finally, I've signed on to a letter to the Biden administration warning against family detention policies that the Trump era ushered in. And that's breaking up families, separating children from their parents, things that have really made it, a disgrace for our nation to witness and to, and to be behind. And I think that the Biden administration, haven't had a conversation with our Secretary of Homeland Security, understand that this cannot happen on their watch.
Okay, so you mentioned comprehensive immigration reform there is a need for an overhaul in the system in the 21st century. And the last time we had any sort of movement, so to speak, was when Ronald Reagan was president. Do you think we'll ever get comprehensive immigration reform, or is it just a hopeless dream?
Well, I'm focused on it, and many of my colleagues recognize that the status quo is untenable, and we have a moral obligation to provide all immigrants, whether they're dreamers, they have TPS, temporary protected status, or a deferred departure recipient, to provide them with a pathway to citizenship and permanent residency, and to update the immigrant registry, clear the family and employment-based backlogs that are currently plaguing the system. So we've got a lot of work to do in this space. As you stated, our immigration laws have not been updated in more than 30 years, and families have been kept apart for decades and limited. We're limited in our ability to attract and retain top talent, and have forced millions to live their lives in a perpetual state of uncertainty. I believe that there will be comprehensive immigration reform. The pressure building towards that is mounting on Capitol Hill, and I think that the American people recognize the necessity. We unfortunately have a small number of members on Capitol Hill that are holding us all captive to a broken system, and we need to do something about that. That means that we need to get individuals elected to office that understand the moral imperative that is before us, and how, in fact, the United States can speak to the world through its population that has come from around the world to make the United States their home and to live out the American dream. So I am hopeful. I'm working very hard to make comprehensive immigration reform a priority in this Congress, and my hope is that we'll get to it. If not, we don't stop there. We don't throw up our hands. We continue in the fight to make sure that we live up to the promises of our nation and pass comprehensive immigration reform.
All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Keep up the fight, keep up the good work, and we look forward to having you back again very soon.
Thank you for having me, Pearl, and I look forward to following up with you and coming back at a time where we can say that we've passed comprehensive immigration reform. We have an orderly way of addressing the desires of immigrants from around the world who want to come to our nation, and I'm very focused, in particular, on the instability that is Haiti right now, and the need for there to be an unbiased, anti-discriminatory policy that sees their humanity as much as we see those who are fleeing war in other parts of the world.
Excellent. Well said. Thank you so much.
Take good care now.
People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people, you have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.